Hey everyone. Tonight's collection is a series of true stories shared by people who've experienced things they still can't explain. These aren't loud, gory horror stories. They're slow-burning tales of dread, strange coincidences, and eerie encounters that stick with you long after the story ends. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let these stories unfold.
I don't look into that mirror at night anymore. I just can't. I used to drive cross-country for work, hauling medical supplies for a small logistics company. I never minded the long hours on the road. It gave me time to think. There's something peaceful about the hum of tires on asphalt, the steady rhythm of the lines flashing by, and the occasional crackle of a late-night AM radio station barely hanging on. This happened in late November, about 4 years ago. I was driving a load from Kansas City to Denver, taking the back roads to avoid some reported ice and wind along the I-70. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I realized I hadn't seen another car in almost an hour. I was somewhere along a remote stretch of highway between Oakley and Colby. Flat land, no lights, no trees, just open blackness all around, broken only by the narrow beam of my headlights. The only reason I noticed him was because of the reflective stripes. He was walking along the side of the road, facing traffic smart for a pedestrian. At first I thought he was a road worker or maybe a stranded driver heading toward the next town. He wore one of those reflective safety jackets you see construction crews wear, except it was way too cold for just a jacket. We were deep into winter territory, and the wind chill alone could freeze your breath midair. I slowed as I approached, more out of instinct than anything else. I kept my eyes on him, expecting him to wave me down or at least acknowledge the truck, but he didn't. He kept walking, head down, steps slow and deliberate. When I passed him, I got a better look. His face was off, not injured, not deformed, just blank. His skin looked gray in my headlights, like all the color had been drained out of it. He didn't look up, not even a glance. That should have been it. A weird sighting, something to tell my wife about when I got home. But 20 minutes later, I saw him again. Same reflective jacket. Same slow walk, same blank face. I almost swerved when I saw him. He was farther up the road, walking toward me again, as though I just looped back somehow. But I hadn't turned. There were no turnoffs, no side roads, nothing but this straight strip of tar across the flat Kansas prairie. I checked my GPS. It showed I was still heading west, same direction. I even pulled over and double-checked the route. Everything was normal. I told myself it was a different guy, maybe a twin, maybe someone else out late, also weirdly dressed for the weather. But then, it happened again. 10 minutes later, there he was. Same guy, same spot, still walking, still not looking up. That's when I started getting this feeling in my chest, like something heavy had settled right behind my ribs. Not fear, not yet, just a weight, a quiet pressure. I turned on the radio, looking for some distraction, but all I got was static and a low hum, until a faint voice came through. I swear I'm not making this up. It was a man's voice, barely audible through the fuzz, and he was whispering. "He's trying to get home," that's all it said. Then back to static. I shut the radio off immediately, rolled down my window to make sure I wasn't just imagining things. The cold wind hit me like a punch. It was real. All of this was real. I didn't see him again for almost an hour. I started to think it had been in my head. Maybe I was just tired, hallucinating a little. Long-haul drivers do that sometimes, especially at night. But at exactly 3:11 a.m., there he was again. This time, he was standing in the middle of the road. I hit the brakes so hard I thought I jackknifed the trailer. Tires screeched, my seatbelt locked, and everything in the cab shifted forward. I stopped maybe 50 feet from him. He didn't move. He didn't react. I turned on my high beams. He looked straight at me. His face was still blank, but now, there was something behind the eyes, like he was looking through me, like I wasn't the one seeing him, he was seeing me. I reached for my phone to take a picture, but the screen wouldn't light up. Dead, even though it was fully charged an hour ago. The cab lights were flickering too, dimming and coming back. Then, just like that, he turned and walked off the road into the tall grass and disappeared. No flashlight, no sound, nothing. I waited. I don't know how long. A minute? 10? I honestly couldn't tell you. Then I slowly drove forward, checking both sides of the road for any sign of him. But there was nothing. No footprints, no tire marks, not even a ripple in the grass where he'd gone. When I finally made it to Colby, I pulled over at a 24-hour gas station and asked the clerk if they'd ever heard of someone walking the highway like that. The guy, maybe in his 60s, paused for a long time. Then he said, "Reflective jacket?" I nodded. He looked down and rubbed his hands together. "Yeah, he shows up sometimes. Usually in the winter. Don't stop for him. That's all I'll say." I tried to press him, but he just rang me up and said, "Safe travels." I never saw the man again, but every time I pass through Kansas, I think about him. And every so often, I check Reddit to see if anyone else has mentioned something similar. A few have. Just glimpses, descriptions, the jacket, the face. They all say the same thing. He's trying to get home.
Story 2. And sometimes, even now, I still hear footsteps on the tiles when I know no one else is home. I never used to lock my bedroom door. Not until the winter of 2020, when I moved into a rental house just outside of Portland, Maine. It was a quiet place, a single-story, 2-bedroom bungalow at the end of a cul-de-sac. I'd just gone through a breakup and needed something cheap and low maintenance while I figured out my next steps. The landlord was an older guy who lived out of state and only asked for first month's rent and a deposit. No credit check. No questions. Just a handshake and a set of keys. At first, I thought I'd lucked out. The house was chilly and a little outdated, faux wood paneling, yellowing blinds, and a furnace that groaned like it was haunted, but it had charm. And privacy. The neighbors were far enough away that I didn't feel watched, and there were dense trees out back, which I found calming. But from the first week, little things started happening. Things I brushed off at first. I'd come home from work and find the living room window cracked open, even though I never touched it. Once or twice, I noticed the back door wasn't fully latched. I blamed myself. New house, new habits, right? Then there were the noises. At night, I'd hear light tapping sounds from inside the walls. Nothing dramatic, just soft little knocks or shifting sounds, like a raccoon had gotten into the attic or maybe the heating ducts were expanding. I told myself it was normal. Old houses make sounds. But then, one evening, I found a spoon on the kitchen counter. I hadn't used a spoon that day. I hadn't even cooked. Still, I chalked it up to forgetfulness. I was stressed, lonely, distracted. My ex had left a pretty big hole in my life, and I figured my brain just wasn't keeping up. But things escalated fast. One night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a faint scraping sound, like something dragging across wood. I stayed in bed, heart pounding, straining to hear it. It was coming from the hallway just outside my bedroom. I sat up, waited. The sound stopped. I told myself it was the furnace again, or a tree branch brushing the siding. But in the morning, I found one of the dining room chairs pulled out. Just slightly. That's when I started locking my bedroom door at night. I also went to Home Depot and bought a motion sensor alarm for the hallway and a door wedge for extra security. It made me feel better. For a while. Then came the smell. It was faint at first, like sour milk or damp laundry. I cleaned everything, took out the trash, scrubbed the fridge. But the smell kept coming back. Stronger near the hallway closet. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the closet and noticed a small hatch in the floor that I hadn't seen before. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Dusty, paint-chipped, with an old iron ring for a handle. I didn't open it right away. Something about it made my skin crawl. Instead, I Googled the address and tried to see if anything strange had ever happened there. No news stories. No police reports. Just some old listings that showed the house had been empty for a while before I moved in. A week later, I gave in and opened the hatch. It led to a narrow crawl space, about 3 feet high, running the length of the house. Dirt floor, wooden beams, a single dangling light bulb that flickered when I pulled the chain. What I saw down there has stayed with me every night since. There were food wrappers, dozens of them, empty cans of beans, soup, and Chef Boyardee. A few plastic water bottles, some with dark yellow liquid, a sleeping bag, a small battery-powered lantern, and in one corner, a small stack of worn paperback books. Someone had been living down there. Recently. I backed away so fast I smacked my head on the low beam and nearly fell back up the stairs. I slammed the hatch shut and sat on the closet floor for at least 10 minutes, trying to breathe. I called the police. 2 officers came out, searched the crawl space, and found what I already had. They said it looked like someone had been squatting there, probably sneaking in through the unlocked back door. They didn't find anyone, just a trail of disturbed dirt that ended near the edge of the crawl space. No prints, no blood, no sign of forced entry. They told me to keep my doors locked and to call again if I saw anything unusual. That was it. I moved out a week later, but here's the part that still messes with me. I went through my fridge and pantry before I left, taking stock of what I'd need to throw out or donate. I realized I hadn't eaten any of the canned food I kept in the lower cabinet, but some of it was missing. And when I checked my bedroom door that last night, I noticed faint scratches near the handle, like someone had tried to open it. Quietly. The landlord never called me after I broke the lease. I left the key under the mat and drove 6 hours to stay with a friend. Sometimes, late at night, I still dream about that hatch, about what might have been watching me through the vent while I slept.
Now to story 3. Her phone's still off, but sometimes I wonder if it ever really stopped sending messages. I still remember the last thing she said to me. Don't let them tell you I just wandered off. Her name was Tara. We were both juniors at a small liberal arts college in Oregon, one of those cozy campuses tucked into a mountain town where everyone knows everyone. Think pine trees, overpriced coffee, and professors who wore quarters blazers like it was still 1979. We weren't close friends. Not really, but we shared a class, folklore and modern mythology, and had gotten paired for a semester-long project. Most students complained about the workload, but Tara seemed to enjoy it. She had this intense curiosity about the world, like everything had a story behind it. It made her easy to talk to, easy to listen to. We met up twice a week at the library or coffee shop to go over research. She always brought her old cassette recorder to document our conversations, said it helped her process things later. And then one day, she didn't show up. It was a Wednesday. I waited over an hour before texting her, then calling. No answer. I figured something came up, or she flaked. The next day, our professor announced in class that Tara was dealing with some personal issues and might be taking a leave of absence. It felt off. Tara didn't seem like the type to disappear mid-semester. She was meticulous, detail-oriented. She kept our project notes in a color-coded binder and emailed weekly summaries. That kind of person doesn't just vanish. A few more days passed, then a week. That's when the rumors started. Some people said she'd been struggling mentally, that she talked about wanting to leave the world behind. Others whispered about a guy she'd been dating who no one really knew. A few students said they saw her last walking toward the woods behind campus. There's a trail that goes into the National Forest, mostly used by joggers and stoners. One girl swore she saw Tara standing at the edge of the tree line, just staring into the trees. That's when I started digging. I knew Tara had kept notes for our project. Stories of disappearances and local legends, strange patterns in rural missing persons cases, myths about forest spirits that could pull people out of the world. At first, I'd laugh them off, but the more I reread her notes, the more they sounded personal, like she believed them. A week later, I found one of her cassette tapes in the campus library. It was misfiled, tucked into the back of a sociology shelf. It had her handwriting on it, just a date, no label. I borrowed a tape recorder and listened to it in my dorm. It was her voice whispering. They're not people, not really. They just were the idea of people. If you go far enough into the trees, past the silence, you'll feel it, like a hum deep inside your skull. Don't listen to it. Don't speak your name. That's how they find you. Then silence. Then static. Then something else. Faint breathing, like she was holding the recorder against her chest. And just before the tape ended, she said, "One more thing. If I go missing, tell them I didn't run. tell them I went too far. I couldn't sleep after that. I reported it to campus security. They didn't take it seriously. Said it was probably some performance art project, or that Tara was just having a breakdown. I tried contacting her parents, but they were evasive, like they were embarrassed or hiding something. Eventually, the police got involved, but it was half-hearted. Another college girl, presumed to be depressed, likely left town. No evidence of foul play. No body. Case closed. But here's where it gets weird. About 2 months after her disappearance, I decided to hike the trail she was last seen on. I don't know what I expected. Maybe closure. Maybe a clue. Maybe guilt pushed me to it. I hiked for hours. It was colder than expected. And the deeper I went, the quieter it got. No birds. No wind. Just trees and the crunch of my boots. I started feeling watched. Not by animals. By something else. Something patient. At one point, I found a small clearing I didn't recognize from any trail maps. And in the center of it was a circle of stones, perfectly spaced as if arranged. In the middle was something charred, burned. It looked like an old cassette recorder. I don't remember getting home. That's the part that scares me the most. I remember being in the woods. Then I remember waking up in my bed, fully dressed, with dirt on my shoes and pine needles in my hair. My phone said it was 2 days later. I checked the calendar 3 times. I even went to urgent care to see if maybe I'd fallen and hit my head. Nothing. No bruises. No injuries. Just missing time. And this odd ringing in my left ear that wouldn't go away for weeks. I never told anyone about that hike. I stopped asking about Tara. I stopped going to that class. I switched majors at the end of the semester and moved off campus. But every so often, maybe once every few months, I'll get a voicemail. It's always from a blocked number. Always blank. Just static, like a tape recorder left running in an empty room. I've kept them all, because sometimes buried deep in the static, if I listen close enough, I can hear breathing. And once, I swear I heard her voice. She said my name, and then she whispered, "Don't come back."